My favorite story that illustrates that is March 1965, when Martin Luther King met with Lyndon Johnson and asked for the Voting Rights Act. And Lyndon Johnson said, "We don't have the votes." And then came the Selma March. And a few months later, in August, we had the Voting Rights Act. So let's not forget that. In the end, it's going to be about Hope 2.0. You know, Hope 2.0 is about people demanding fundamental change. It's about people making sure that we have more change than just what Olympia Snow is comfortable with. Because the vision of government that began by the New Deal of FDR was extended during the Great Society of Lyndon Johnson and now is struggling back towards relevance, is the vision that holds that the forces of government should be marshaled to improve conditions for the greatest possible number of Americans, with particular emphasis on the excluded and the disadvantaged. And this vision of government is something that we can all proudly stand behind. And if we do, then I have no doubt that we'll be able to bring the American people with us. But it has to be an unambiguous vision of government. It has to be followed through with real accountability, and it has to be absolutely clear-cut that capitalism is not about socializing losses and privatizing gains. Because that's what we have right now. And ultimately, that's what the people are feeling. The sense that somehow the special interests are prevailing. Because they know how to play the game. Goldman Sachs has given just as much money almost to Republicans as to Democrats. John Paulson, the man behind this particular instrument that Goldman Sachs is at the moment, has the SEC after it, has been a major contributor to the Democratic Party. That's why I'm calling on you to actually be the watchdogs. It's not going to be enough just to expect our elected officials to do their job. They need to recognize that if they don't, you are going to be after them. This is the moment for all of us, whether we're in the media or whether running for office or whether supporting those for running for office, to, in many ways, empower people to be participants in what is happening. That's why we launched the Move Your Money campaign. And let me end on this, because it has been really an amazing success for people to feel that if the government isn't going to take the big banks and make them smaller so that they are not too big to fail and so that the taxpayer is not once again on the hook, then let's do it for them. We can move our money out of the big banks. And those in this room who also can move the city money and the state money out of the big banks have a huge power. Let's use it. And cities and states across the country are doing that. In Massachusetts, in New Mexico, in Maryland, here the city of Los Angeles has basically passed an ordinance that if the banks they're dealing with are not reinvesting in the community, well, they can deal with different banks. So let's bring back all these fundamental issues of competition and real free enterprise and real accountability so that we can all come together and save the middle class that is really in trouble right now. And this is the window we have for reform. Let's use it. Thank you.
She has kindly agreed to answer a few questions. She's going to make me buy a computer. That was so damn good. We're going to have to shout out or raise a hand or do something.
Yes.
Turn the mic. Is it on? Oh, it is. Can you talk about unions and how they're trying to break unions? And just, you know, I'm a member of CTA and the teachers union. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I just see this bashing of teachers constantly going on, and the bashing of unions. And you look at the mine; it's a non-union mine. So
well, this is actually very interesting because you had Rush Limbaugh saying, "Where were the unions at the mine?" And there was no union. It was a non-unionized mine. And Massey Energy did everything it could to basically intimidate the miners so they did not join a union. So this is one of the problems that we see when in an industry like the mining industry, say, you have the miners confronted with either doing whatever the bosses want or not having a job. And that is really what is a tragic fact about that story. That a few days before the collapse, people knew there was trouble because miners were sent home early because the gases, the methane gases were rising. So even though they knew there was trouble, they didn't have any advocates there to say, that's it, we're not going back until you fix the problem. So this is really one of those teachable moments where we can see the power and the importance of unions instead of just giving in to the union culture.
Arianna, thanks for coming. I'm a regular reader and a blogger on Huffington Post.
Oh, I see.
What I see is a big problem in this country is very few people pay attention to politics until the time of the election. And there are a lot of people watching Rush Limbaugh and the others on Fox Channel. And the other people on other channels are all called liberals. And, you know, even though they are telling the truth, nobody's paying any attention. Is there anything that people can do to improve the understanding by the voters of the real politics? If all the Democrats vote in this country, I don't think the Republican can win any election. Thank you.
Well, Chris Matthews is here, and he regularly, every day, tells the truth on his show. I want to make a very clear distinction between people who are passionate, but their passion is based on facts, and people who are passionate, but their passion is based on fantasy. There's a big distinction to be made between what Fox does and what, say, happens on MSNBC. And that's a distinction that would be much easier to bring home to people if we had something which I'd love to see, a kind of way, maybe a technological way to immediately put the facts up when people talk. Wouldn't it be wonderful, let's say, if when Sarah Palin was talking about death panels or Senator Grassley was talking about death panels, that you immediately had a little bubble that went up and actually you could see what the provision in the bill was. And you know, this could be a completely non-partisan tool. Excuse me, but I have to say that when President Obama said that I did not campaign on the public option, there would be a little bubble going up that showed his campaign website that had plenty about the public option and all the times in which he had talked about the public option.